Hello, I'm Sarah Holcomb, and welcome to Mad Hatter News, where everything is madness except for here, ironically enough. Charlie Kirk was assassinated. He was a political far-right commentator. He was not an elected official. He was not even really educated on the topics of political science or anything he was really talking about. He was more so a political influencer and a community college dropout who the far-right was using as a puppet to expand their propaganda. Charlie Kirk was being paid by the Trump administration to spread propaganda in a tour across the United States, mainly focusing on areas who would agree with him, thus further exacerbating their dangerous political ideologies in these areas, the hateful rhetoric, the aggression, the violence. I mean, the things that he said were just absolutely insane, let's just be honest. He said that if a 10-year-old got R-worded by just a random man who wanted to R-word her, that we should force that 10-year-old to have a child, even if it was his own daughter.
So if you had a daughter and she was 10 and she got raped and she was going to give birth and she would, and she was going to give birth and she was going to live, would you want her to go through that and carry her baby?
That's awfully graphic.
It's a real life scenario that happens to many people.
The answer is yes, the baby would be delivered.
Oh, okay, great. So that's insane.
But let me tell you why. No, hold on. Let me ask you a question.
He said Martin Luther King Jr. wasn't that influential and that he shouldn't have his own national holiday and he shouldn't be revered as he is. Yet strangely enough, I'm getting DMs from people saying that Charlie Kirk is like Martin Luther King Jr. and that we need to respect him because he's the Martin Luther King Jr. of our time in 2025. These people are absolutely insane and they have drank all the red Kool-Aid, like all of it. He didn't care about the violence going on in Gaza. He really thought that they deserved it. And he was spreading all these ideologies to people who already kind of believed that and were stuck in their own bubble, thus making them even more fortified in their terroristic thoughts, thus making more internal terrorists. But then, extremely recently, Charlie Kirk began to say some things that were not so far right. He began to ask more questions because he could see that a lot of what he was spewing wasn't completely true. He actually called out Ben Shapiro in a conversation that was televised live on the 9th of September, in which he said that Jews own the media. And he had Ben Shapiro put on the spot by saying, Ben, you know that Jews own the media.
So the Ben, perception, the legacy media is owned by the Jews. And
I was going to say, Ben, come on. You Jews own the media, Ben. So, I mean, come on. As you can tell by all the wonderful headlines you guys get. But Bibi said, quote, I didn't like he said this, I'll be honest. You can't be MAGA if you're anti-Israel. I don't like it for a couple reasons. How did you analyze that statement from Bibi?
I mean, and I think that there is the ungenerous way of interpreting that and then the generous.
Interestingly enough, on that same day, a book was published that talks about Charlie Kirk being shot, but he hadn't been shot yet. And in this book, they were saying that he survived, but there was supposed to be some sort of an attempt on his life that was supposed to make large political news, apparently. This is a screenshot I actually took, so this is real. This is something that I took from Amazon, and then they took the book down because people were noticing, hey, this book was written the day before he got shot. That's suspicious. And right after this Ben Shapiro interview where Charlie Kirk said, hey, Jews on the media, what's up? Then Charlie Kirk is dead the next day. What I find crazy about this is that every single person saw him get assassinated, POV, up close and personal. It was spread on the internet like wildfire. Something like that, as gory as it is, usually is not spread. It's immediately taken down. We're not able to see things like that. I feel like they kept it up for a reason. They're trying to make us very upset and start fighting amongst each other, which is exactly what happened. It was really funny when I saw the same people that were pro-Luigi, who, as you remember, pew-pewed that CEO in the street, the same people that were pro-Luigi pew-pewing that guy in the street are the same people who were up in arms and very disgusted and upset with the people who were doing the exact same thing in regards to Charlie Kirk. The only difference was we saw very obviously what happened to Charlie Kirk up close and personal in our face and didn't see up close and personal what happened to the CEO that Luigi had pew-pewed. That was the only difference. We saw it with our eyes, and thus it emotionally affected people. The media and the powers that be, they know that this is how we operate. They know that we are completely controlled by our emotions as human beings. They know exactly how to pull the puppet strings for us to do what they want. I want everyone to just think, maybe this could have been orchestrated. by someone that wasn't from either political party, someone that's above all political parties, someone with an agenda who knew that if Charlie Kirk started to go any farther left, that was going to be a big problem, because a lot of people did follow Charlie Kirk. They knew the influence that he had over far-right people, especially the young youth. That's why they would bring Charlie Kirk to these vastly Republican college campuses to further massage their brains to be more far-right MAGA. But then when Charlie Kirk, with that influence over these young people, starts to lean a little bit more left, and let's be honest, it's not really leaning left, it's just kind of saying what is. He immediately gets assassinated like less than 24 hours later. There are a lot of conspiracies online, but what I think is really interesting is that they've actually proven there was a private jet that had only made one plane trip this entire year that landed in Utah and then left immediately after. And it was registered to a billionaire who has ties to Netanyahu and Israel. Interesting, don't you think? Now, the kid that they have in custody, yes, he did confess to this. His dad turned him in, but there's something very weird about this. They're still in the media trying to make this a left versus right thing. Now, if you remember in the beginning, they tried to blame it on the opposing political party, that a liberal did this. Oh my gosh, a liberal did this. And I was like, I really don't think a liberal did this. I don't think so. And I want to remind you guys, I'm not a liberal and I'm not a conservative. I'm just a part of what makes sense. I look at the facts and I'm like, something's not adding up. That's all I do here. So when I saw this, it just didn't feel right. I was like, there's something very suspect about this. This kid was from a pro-MAGA family. His own grandmother is like, we don't even know anybody who is a liberal. We don't know any Democrats. I don't understand where he got this from. His own grandma said that he hadn't even spoken to her about Democrat versus Republican or any politics whatsoever. So this is very weird even for his family. I just want to pose the question, do you think that possibly there could have been a deep fake? You might have seen on Netflix, there's something called Deep Fake Love, where they have a bunch of people who are put into a house and their love is tested because they are trying to figure out if they want to stay with their partner or not. And then they show these people, their partners cheating on them. But it's actually AI. Their partners didn't do that. Like, there's a real video footage and then they completely change what their partners do and show them cheating on them, but it's not real. It's AI, but you really can't tell the difference. Is it possible that they maybe did this with the footage of the shooter? Because I mean, if Netflix has this capability, what do you think the government has? My only point of this is to think. This is not the first time that the US government has done something to its own people to have them emotionally riled up to the point that they agree with whatever the government decides to do next. They said things in 9/11 that in retrospect, we were like, no, that's not possible. Like finding the terrorist passports on the ground after the attack. Like, we know that's not possible. Hello? So a lot of these Easter eggs that we feel like the media is feeding us right now, I don't know. They kind of seem the same. They kind of seem like plants that we are seeing through right now. Now, you can listen to me or not. I was a reporter in Washington, D.C., so I do know how things are manipulated. I do know that there were stories that I asked to put in the news and I was laughed at. Things that I knew that the rest of society might find interesting, but I was told no. I was actually laughed at. So no, they wanted me to report on what they wanted me to report on in the way they wanted me to report. I had to change certain words because it was at the time the place that I worked for was owned by Mormons, which, by the way, the place that I worked for didn't seem to be affiliated with any religious party at all. It was the #1 talk radio news in the United States. But if you look deep onto who owned it, it was owned by Mormons. It was owned by a company that itself was owned by another company that was run by Mormons. And that's why we couldn't say certain things. It had to be completely manipulated and controlled to the narrative that Mormons would find appealing or they would approve of. But you wouldn't know that the #1 talk radio news station in the country was owned by Mormons unless you did some research on that. But I was working there. So yes, I do know how things are controlled and manipulated and propagandized to get you to want to think certain ways. My point is, don't drink the Kool-Aid. Think for yourself. There obviously is something more going on here. They're trying to turn the left versus the right. They're trying to make a civil war. They should be wanting peace. They don't want peace. This political party that is in control of the United States right now, I don't think that they're conservative at all. I think they are fascists and they are a regime. I think that they are disguising themselves as conservatives because I grew up in a conservative family. And yes, conservatives are extremely far right. They are very cut and dry, black and white type of people. At the same time, I kind of feel like what's going on right now with the Trump administration is not conservatism. It's a little bit more evil than that. There's something going on. And while I do believe that both parties are inherently evil, I also think that it's very obvious right now they are trying to make a divide between the two political parties in the United States to create a hatred towards the other so that they do incite civil war, because they know that revolution was kind of coming, which I do still think that it is, but they're trying to circumvent that to make us mad at each other instead of being mad at them. At the end of the day, though, I think a lot of people are getting a lot smarter, and we have the internet. We can all spread this information pretty fast, and we're seeing the propaganda. They cannot fool us like they did 25 years ago. Very quickly, we start seeing the holes in their plot, and that's not good for them. I think the next step is to take the internet away from us. We're getting too smart. They're gonna take the internet away. I think that everybody just needs to think more. Whether or not I'm correct in this, whether or not I am hitting on anything true, I still want people to take these little bits of factual information and think just a little bit with themselves. We know the media does not tell us 100% of the story. We know the media completely concocts its own ideas. And we are also seeing that the media is still, even after they find out this kid is coming from a MAGA family, still trying to say that he's a liberal when he never was affiliated with any political party ever. He didn't even vote. Anyways, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up and follow for more tea. Let me know what you think in the comments, because this is a pretty crazy situation that happened and no one really knows exactly what happened, but a lot of people are eating that propaganda cake, and that's a huge problem. We need to stop this. As always, stay safe out there, guys, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.